Well, good afternoon. It is Thursday, coming to the end of the week and the end of October. And I just wanted to talk today about how we really care about what other people think of us. No, we really do care about what other people think of us. I mean, all of us, it's just such a big deal. It's why we brush our teeth and comb our hair and dress a particular way. It's not to impress ourselves. We don't care. It's not to impress God because He certainly doesn't care, which is why I want to talk about this today. But we do care about what other people think of us, and sometimes that can be to our detriment. There used to be a commercial, and it said this: "You never get a second chance to make a first impression." Now, they were trying to sell a product. I get all that. You want to make sure that you brush your teeth before you see people because, or drink the scope. I can't remember the product. You may remember it. But whatever it is, you don't want to have bad breath when you run into people because, after all, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And that's stuck with a lot of people. And it's like, man, that's true. You really do never get a second chance to make a first impression. But the premise is wrong. The premise is this: I want to make an impression on you. And I want my first impression to be an impressive impression. I want you to think that I really have it all together, that I look good, that I sound good, that I'm articulate, that I'm intelligent, that I come from good stock. We think all of these things, and the amazing thing about it is first impressions are highly overrated. I mean, we have got to stop caring about what other people think, and that's so difficult to do. We should only care what God thinks. And the decisions that we make need to be based on that. Need to be based on what God has told us to do, what He's called us to do, who He's called us to be. Those are the things that really matter. I think about David. King David? Well, before he was a king, he was a little bitty fellow. In 1 Samuel 16, it records a story of God. The chapter starts off with God chiding the prophet Samuel. And he says, "How long will you mourn Saul? I have rejected him." Everybody thought the reason that Saul was picked in the first place was because he was taller than everybody else. He was a good-looking guy. He just commanded respect. And those first impressions are so important. And so Samuel's now looking for a new king. He's supposed to anoint a new king. He's grieving Saul. He feels like he's a failure, and he thought he had done the right thing and picked the right person, and felt like God's heart was in that. And certainly all that's true. God's heart can be in tall, good-looking people as well. But now Samuel, it's time for him to go find a new king for Israel. And so he heads out, and God directs him to go to Jesse, the Bethlehemite, of course, from the town of Bethlehem. More on that later, right? As we move toward Christmas. And so he goes to Jesse and looks at his sons. Jesse has several sons. And so when he gets to Jesse, the town people ask, has he come peaceably? He says he's come to sacrifice. And so he makes a sacrifice, and he goes to Jesse, and he says, "I want to see all your sons because I'm going to anoint a new king." Well, the first person on Jesse's mind of his sons is not the one that's going to be chosen. It will not be the one that God has chosen to be the next king of Israel. The first one is Eliab. And so Jesse's oldest son comes, and he's tall, and he's good looking too. And surely this is the man. And God says, he's not the one. I've rejected him. He's not the one. Let's look at another one. And so all of Jesse's sons come before Samuel. And every single one, God says, this is not the one. This is not the one. This is not the one. And then, at the very last, Samuel asks the question. He says, well, do you have any more sons? And Jesse says, well, I have one, but he's out attending sheep. He's not really in the running for king of Israel. And Samuel says, we will not sit down until he gets here. And when David gets here, gets to them, and stands before them, God says, he's the one, anoint him. Now, here's what I really want to talk about. It must not have felt too good to David for him to know that he was about to be anointed the king of Israel, and his own father never even considered him. Never even thought that the person that would have the grandest dreams for you besides yourself, the person that you would want in your corner more than anyone else. And Jesse did not believe that David would ever be king material. That had to hurt. My point today is I think a lot of us have been hurt. People around us have not believed in us. And it's affected the way we look at ourselves. It's affected the way we perform in life and carry out our role as God has intended. Because we're so worried about what other people think of us that it's very, very difficult for us to focus on what God thinks of us. In that same chapter, after Eliab came before Samuel, and Samuel said, surely this is the one. God said, do not look on the outside, for man looks on the outside, but God looks at the heart. I want to tell you something today. God sees what's inside of you. He sees what you're made of. He knows your struggles. He knows your fears. He knows your anxieties and your joys. He knows your deepest, darkest secrets and your greatest dreams. And he believes in you. Your life to him is so intrinsically precious that you can't even imagine. Someone once said that God has had more thoughts about you in 1 millisecond than you will have about you in your entire life. The eternal God loves you and cares about you. And you don't make an impression on him because of something you do. You don't make an impression on him because of who you are. You make an impression on him because you're his creation and he loves you. So I hope today as you just think about this, you will take this to heart and you will remember that you are so incredibly valuable to God. He takes great delight in all of his creation. It's one of the things I really love about God. What he does is really amazing. In his creation, I heard someone say this one time, it's always stuck with me. In his creation, his making all of creation, one of the things he made was the waves of the ocean. You ever been to the edge of the ocean? Most of us have. And as we stand there and listen to the serene sound that a wave makes. Have you ever noticed? There's nothing like the sound of a wave. As a matter of fact, they put that on sound machines so you can sleep better because it's so peaceful. It is so beautiful. And it's so incredible is the wave, the small wave. Usually it's just small waves. It's not surfing waves or anything at the beaches that we go to, but it's just small waves. And they begin to rise about 100 yards offshore. And this ripple comes in, and the closer they get, there's at some point, there's just this climactic moment where they begin to crest, where the water starts to turn white on the top as it falls from the top of the wave. And then it makes that glorious, beautiful sound as it washes up on the shore. I mean, isn't that an incredible thing? God made that wave. And he loved it so much and had so much value to him that like a little child sitting there making something that he really, really loved, he does it again and again. And he loves it so much. Or the flowers of a field. I was in Romania one time, and there was these, you can't imagine how many sunflowers there were in these fields as we were traveling from the airport to our destination. It was incredible. It was in Bucharest, Romania, and I couldn't believe all of the sunflowers that I was seeing. And I just thought to myself, it's amazing. A sunflower is a remarkable flower. And God made one, and he said, wow, that's cool. I think I'm going to do it again. And he covered fields with yellow sunflowers. Now, if God loves the flowers of the field and enjoys the sound and the beauty of a small wave, how much more does he care about you? And it doesn't matter what you do or what you have done, how you've messed up, or how you've fallen short. It might matter to other people. And the first impression that you've made on people might not have been all that great. But for God, You're extremely valuable, and he loves you so much. And I hope that today that you can just remember that. And we're going to close out our week with that thought. And what a beautiful way to do that. To just remember that God cares for you. You never get a second chance to make a first impression? Who cares? I don't care about making impressions on people. I don't want to. I want to care about what I mean to God. And what I mean to God, his word reminds me over and over that God does not look on the outside. For man looks on the outside, but God looks at the heart. So stand strong, believer, and know that God loves you. Jesus has you. And until we come together again, which will be Sunday morning at 11 o'clock, we're going to study the book of Ephesians. So if you're in the Henry County area, I want to invite you to join us. If you're not, tune in here online and check it all out. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, a great weekend, and I will see you Sunday morning, 11 o'clock. See you then. Have a great day.